This week, we will be reading from Parashat Re'eh. Re'eh marks the start of the third of four sermons Moses gives to the Israelites as they are about to enter into the land of Canaan. Moses is addressing all the assembled people with the words, Re'eh anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha uklala. See, this day I set before you blessing and curse. Here Moses is laying before the Israelites two starkly different life choices, living a life filled with blessing and meaning, or a life without. And in order to make the right choice, the Israelites need to open their eyes and see what was around them. Of course, this is easier said than done. It is so easy to be so focused on life's challenges that one can miss potential opportunities for blessings. As Rabbi Artson wrote in the Bedside Torah, in the midst of all of these anxieties, how are we to live? Isn't unrelenting gloom a rational response? Many scholars and philosophers, struck by life's apparent pointlessness, have counseled emotional withdrawal from the passions of living for precisely that reason. We live and we die without hope of any real breakthrough in human understanding or harmony. Is despair the most logical attitude to cultivate? Perhaps it is, but people are never strictly rational, and life is far too variegated to fit any single response. So what does that mean for us as Jews? Is there one right way to do Judaism? Though some might argue there is only one way to do Judaism, they could not be more wrong. In the words of Rabbi Rachel Sabbath Beit Halakmi, if someone tells you that Judaism is X or Y, you should never believe them. Judaism is such a complex civilization. It is made up of religion and culture, language and land, and a particular kind of peoplehood. In every context, different aspects of Judaism have been lived out in countless different ways. Judaism is not only complex, but it is also filled with contradictory opinions, so that any single view will, by definition, fail to offer a full sense of all the possibilities. This, I admit, is what I most love about being Jewish. Yet in our current reality of increasing identity politics and ethical complexities, it is ever more urgent to define who we are and what, at our core, we are about as Jews. What is it that makes us who we are? Do we in fact know, as Rabbi Irving Yitz Greenberg and others have framed it, who and whose we are? Despite all our complexities and all the vehement reductionist discourse, however, I still believe we can say something very clear about who we are. And for those of us who are religious, about whose we are, in Am Kadosh, a people consecrated to the eternal your God, a holy people. I believe at its core, Judaism primarily strives to achieve two particular goals: the ethical development of human beings and the establishment of an ethical society. For the Torah, the descendants of Abraham are a people with whom to make a sacred covenant and to attempt to achieve those goals. The Israelites' preparations both to enter the land where they will be able to live out these visions and to create an ideal society are central motifs of Deuteronomy and a particular focus of Parashat Re'eh. In fact, at the center of the Mishnah, the six-book first collection of Jewish law, is Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our ancestors, the quintessential Jewish tractate about interpersonal ethics. For the Deuteronomist, who you are for much of this section of the Torah is defined by what you do. If you are God's sacred people, you observe particular ways of being in the world. If you want to create an ethical society, you take care of the needy. Well, in the vision of the Deuteronomist, the ideal society will have no needy. The authors also know that any human society will always have those who are in need. And thus we need to be very clear, as the commentator Rashi emphasizes, that we must open our hands and our hearts and give what is ever needed. All of this, of course, is based on who we are as well. Bear in mind that we were slaves in the land of Egypt. Our relationship with God, whose we are, is in the repetition of stating that we know because of whom we were redeemed and by whose Torah we seek to live. So the Deuteronomist insists we show that we love God through particular ethical and ritual practices, by resisting other practices and only engaging in practices of sacred existence expressed by how we consume food, how we take care of others, how we protect the land, and how we remember our blessings. This section of the Torah covers an incredibly wide range of behaviors that serve to create and maintain identity, from understanding the blessings of making the right choices about living in the promised land, to vigilantly choosing to worship the one God, to partaking of food of the earth and eating of the animal kingdom, with limitations to taking care of the needy. This section of Deuteronomy is laser focused on the behaviors that will ensure that the Israelites will maintain a particular identity in order to achieve the larger goals. To be God's people means to find ways in everyday behaviors of eating, walking, sleeping, teaching, and plowing the fields that acknowledge with humility whose we are through what we do, which is who we are. And yes, this also includes how we take care of our children. Choosing the good over and over again, as this section repeats like a chorus, defines each of us as being part of this Israelite nation. Other nations have their particular ways of being, and we have ours, lived out through the mitzvot of how we treat people, how we treat the earth, how we treat animals, and how we respond to God. What is often framed according to Judaism through the lenses of Deuteronomy as a tension between the particular and the universal is resolved because the particular and the universal are in fact unified. It is in our particularity that our universal values are lived out. In being particular, we are in fact being universal. Judaism in all its complexity is above and beyond all about being good, about knowing that we have free will and at every moment can engage in choosing life and that which is good, choosing that which sustains human society. There is always the possibility of blessing and curse. Much of what happens, however, is actually because of what we choose. Identity is not only made up of the family and tribe into which we were born, but also shaped by the ethical choices we make as individuals. Collective identity, however, is determined by the ritual and ethical practices we engage in as a community, which in turn establishes who and whose we are in the greater scheme of history. At the climax of this portion, in the final way in which we reconfirm our identity, 3 specific times a year on the 3 pilgrimage holidays, we ascend to a specific place, bearing the gifts of the land and our endless gratitude, remembering and celebrating who and whose we are, and reminding ourselves of who we want to be in the months and the years ahead. Every day, we are faced with countless choices: what to eat, what to wear, what show to watch, plastic or paper, Cornhuskers or Longhorns. And there are nearly as many ways to do Judaism. And like these other choices, how we choose to express our Judaism becomes a reflection of ourselves, our family, and our community. The choices are not always easy, but when we choose for the good, we are choosing blessing, gratitude, and joy. What we cannot and should not do is allow others to define or make the choices for us. For as it says in the beginning of Re'eh anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha uklala. See, I set this day before you blessing and curse. Blessing or curse. The choice is yours. The choice is ours. Or to borrow from Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, choose wisely. Shabbat Shalom.